Well, I thought the movie was incredibly well done from a technical point of view, brilliant performances. But Ed, this movie has a strong political agenda. It's a neocon fantasy, and there's no good Iraqi except the dead Iraqi. And I think what we will learn from this, and why the movie is in fact dangerous propaganda, is that we got to go to war, we got to kill people, and that's going to make democracy safer. Well, it's nonsense. It's not true. It hasn't been true.
Right. When has a war ever kept us safer? When has a war ever secured our democracy? Can't recall that in American history. Joining us now is Harmon Kaslow. He's movie producer and entertainment attorney. Of course, produced the Atlas Shrugged trilogy, among others. Hello, sir.
How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing well. So when you hear your fellow movie makers from the left say, imagine this now, that the movie American Sniper has a political agenda, and it's a neocon's dream, and it's dangerous propaganda. Wow.
Right. You know, you don't hear that about the progressive message that's embedded in nearly every other movie that the studios put out. You know, Clint Eastwood, you know, he sat there at the Republican National Convention. They know his politics. The thing is that he's also a very competent storyteller, and so it creates a little bit of a dilemma for Hollywood. What do you got to do with a guy like this?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. Now, let me let you. I'll read it to you. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but I want the folks to see what Michael Moore tweeted out. He posted a series of tweets and then wound up saying, oh, I wasn't talking about Chris Kyle. I wasn't talking about this movie. But here's what he had to say. My uncle killed by sniper in World War II. We were taught snipers were cowards. We'll shoot you in the back. Snipers aren't heroes, and invaders are worse. I mean, here's another liberal, documentary filmmaker, hypocrite, if ever there was one, in Michael Moore.
Right, and it's also a little bit, insulting to those who, have chosen to defend this country, to follow the orders of the commander-in-chief, and to, go and execute. And a lot of times they don't have the ability to vote or participate in the agenda, that they're being asked to follow. And so, I think that, in this country, we always want to respect those who are willing to die as part of our armed services. We're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And I really think that the story, specifically American Sniper, is actually a very sad story. And kind of seeing what this person is going through. And it's, it is eye-opening to sort of try to experience what these people who are fighting on behalf of this country are doing, and in some instances ask the question, what are we doing there?
Right, absolutely. But let me ask you one more. When you hear this reaction from the left, it was also Seth Rogen, it's a million of them. Does this frighten them? Are they scared that this is resonating so greatly with the American public that they have to weigh in with these cockamamie accusations?
Well, here's the thing is that, on the far left as well as on the far right, there really is a minority in this country on both sides of that spectrum. The problem is that they're very loud, and they make it sound like they represent a much bigger segment of the population than they really do. Hollywood, as we well know, is so dominated by those progressive thinkers on the left that they forget that in the middle of this polarized right and left are the independents, and the independents make up the vast majority of this country. And what Clint Eastwood was able to do with this film is really touch a nerve. It was about patriotism, about what these guys go through. That people knew that if they went and saw the movie, they were going to see a message, whether they like it or they don't. They were going to see a very compelling piece of cinema, something for them to think about. And they just suspected that someone like Clint Eastwood would be able to deliver that, since
Right.
The studios have failed miserably time and time again in bringing us films with that sort of messaging.
We have less than a minute. Al Sharpton, this whole Selma thing, how off base do you believe he is?
Oh, it's tremendously off base. There is no affirmative action when it comes to awards. Al Sharpton, doesn't remember 12 Years in a Slave, won a ton of Academy Awards. There can only be 5 nominees for all categories except for one, Best Picture. So who knows? Maybe the people who worked on Selma came in 6th or 7th place. That doesn't mean they should get a bump away someone who deserves it. The picture's been nominated for Best Picture. Let's not insult the hard work of the other artisans by somehow trying to make Selma be the diversity picture when really that has nothing to do with its message.
Right.
And it actually is a very good movie, and so it's a shame that he might take away from people wanting to see it.
Harmon, thank you very much. Great to talk to you.
Pleasure, guys.
Take care. All right, we'll be back with the Malzberg panel, but first, ladies and gentlemen, this hour's American Moment.
His presidency was one of the most vexing in American history. Mention the name Richard Milhous Nixon, and some will always remember him as the president who resigned over Watergate. But many others will credit him with one of the greatest diplomatic achievements, the reestablishment of relations between the United States and the People's Republic of China.
As I have pointed out on a number of occasions over the past 3 years, there can be no stable and enduring peace without the participation of the People's Republic of China and its 750 million people.
For 25 years, diplomatic relations between the two great nations had chilled, following the United States' decision to recognize Taiwan as the legitimate government of China. President Nixon and his then National Security Advisor, Dr. Henry Kissinger, reached out to his communist adversary to change that.
The meeting between the leaders of China and the United States is to seek the normalization of relations between the two countries, and also to exchange views on questions of concern to the two sides.
On February 21st, 1972, President Nixon, along with his wife Pat, arrived in Beijing. He was feted by the Chinese and honored by no less a figure than Chairman Mao himself. Richard Nixon's opening of China to the West has been described as genius, the boldest diplomatic move on the global chessboard in a century. In one stroke, Nixon had separated communist China from the Soviet Union, reducing the power of the communist bloc and paving the way for the eventual end of the Cold War. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American Moment.